Welcome to Rapid Recap. I'm Tim Verghese, joined by Steve Marik. Steve, we got an open look at practice once again this morning. We also got to talk to Marcus Satterfield, now the tight ends coach, Rob Dvorak, the linebackers coach, Heinrich Haarberg, and a few other players today. Steve, you were watching the defense. I was watching the offense. We'll kick it off with you. Just observations from this morning. What stood out to you at practice?
What stood out to me was Phil Snow. So when I walked into the Hawks Championship Center where the defense was, as you said, Tim, you just heard Phil Snow talking. You heard his voice echoing, and he was over with the defensive backs, and that makes sense because he's a DB guy at heart. He's a longtime rule assistant whose primary focus in the coaching position world has been with the defensive backs, and he was handling not the old guys but the young guys. He was handling the first and second year defensive backs, of which there are many on Nebraska's roster right now. And just him in the details, and every coach at Nebraska right now is hammering on the details and talking about how they can learn and grow and get better. But with Phil Simpson, his depth of football knowledge is so deep and so expansive. And so when I thought it was kind of cool just to watch him at work with those super young defensive backs. A guy that caught my eye fairly early was Bryson Weber, true freshman out of Texas, early enrollee. Looks great, 6'2", 100, whatever he is, Tim, 190 pounds, something like that,
Yeah,
185.
180. Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll obviously have to work on strength and stuff, but the length is there. I know Phil Snow, he really liked a rep of Bryson's where he was really using his hand technique to throw a punch into the chest of the receiver during one drill. So yeah, Phil Snow I think is going to be such an important piece of this defensive staff, not as a defensive coordinator, but just somebody who can keep everything in line with John Butler and what he wants to do in the offense, and always kind of keep it into what a Matt Rule defense wants to be and wants to be about. So I think having Phil Snow handle the defensive backs is just such a big group that I think it benefits the program to have somebody like Phil Snow with his experience level. I mean, he's 69 years old, but he does not sound like a 69-year-old, and he doesn't move like a 69-year-old. So yeah, watching Phil Snow was kind of what stood out to me right now. It was kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along with kind of what we've talked about with this defense under John Butler moving forward. It feels like it's just going to be very secondary focus. It's going to be, from
Yeah.
top down versus with Tony White, it was, front up. You dictate the front, the back end just adapts. This feels like, I mean, with so many Phil Snow, John Butler, Addison Williams, it's just three secondary focus guys on
Yep.
this defensive coaching staff. And then you got Adam DiMichele, Coach AD,
Yeah.
as I guess recruits are calling him now. But yeah, watching, I guess, getting to see the D line more of Terry Braden. Anything stand out there, and just getting to see some of the new faces up there. What's your confidence in that group right now?
It's growing every time that I watch them, and I know it's spring ball and they weren't going live when we were there. But just looking at the room as a whole, the different bodies that are in there and the different sizes that can help a defensive staff match what the offense is going to be putting out on the field. Just for an example, like there's so many pass rushing opportunities with this defensive line, especially with like the lengthy guys that are just so long, like Williams Winery, and it's going to be very fun to see who is on the field and when. Your imagination can kind of just go wild when you're thinking about all the different things that Nebraska's defense will be able to do on things like third down, third and long in the red zone. But of course, to rush the passer, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. So that means stopping the run on first and second down, so you can have fun on third down and do these exotic different things. The advancing the third down package, as Phil Snow put it last month, to do all that fun stuff, you need to obviously stop the run on first and second down, and that's where it's going to be an interesting piece to talk about, especially with Ty Robinson departing the program, Nash Hutmacher departing the program. Can guys like Riley Van Poppel, Elijah Judy, who was up to 300 pounds, which was good to hear from him last week. Those guys are going to be really important. And then, yeah, just there's the young guys, the untested guys in that room. A lot of them are going to have to be leaned on to play big time snap counts for like first time in their lives. So this is going to be a really interesting spring period. And yeah, as a whole, the defensive line, it's I think every time I see them out there, I get a little bit more confident in them. Are they going to play up to the standard, stopping the run like last year's defense did? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think the right pieces are there.
Yeah, you like the look of the room. I noted to you, I
Oh
kind of
yeah,
walked as I was walking into the press room this morning, kind of passed through practice on my way, and I was like, man, every time I pass Keona Davis, he looks like a monster. Just
Keanu Davis.
just
Yeah.
right now, just looks the part. Obviously, him and Williams and Renario are like the big dudes in that room right now. But yeah, I think that room's coming together. I'm excited to see them. I'll probably be on the defensive side next week. So go ahead.
One more on the defensive line room. Today was really the first time, at least that I can remember, that we got eyes on Gabe Moore that
Yeah.
wasn't on a stationary bike. So Gabe Moore, for the viewers at home, he was spent the past 2 seasons at Mississippi State. Not sure he was even with the team last year before entering the portal. But the online roster has updated his weight to 290 pounds. It was 250 before at 6'4". So it's good. It's good to know that Gabe Moore actually came here looking like a defensive lineman. So is
An
he going to
interior
play
defensive
this?
lineman.
An interior defensive
Yeah.
lineman. So is he going to play this fall? We don't know. Is this is just it's a long way to kind of just think how much he's going to help the defensive line. But it was good to see Gabe Moore out there actually practicing snaps and actually doing drills for the first time.
I was on the with the offense. Couple things for me just that stuck out. Watching the offensive line, feels like that unit's starting to come together just in terms of who's playing what. Justin Evans kind of slotting in at center. Sam Sledge worked in a little bit as well. Elijah
Mm-hmm.
Pritchett moved over to the left side of the line.
Mm-hmm.
Rocco at his old guard spot. Looks like it's a mix of Henry Lutovsky. We got to see a little bit of Teddy Prohaska out there as well
Yep.
today, working in the green jersey. But looks like it's going to be at least for spring. It looks like Lutovsky at right tackle. That feels like when the first line lined up, it always felt like it was him out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, watching just a little closely this time around, Elijah Pritchett looks the part, of course, like NFL size, which is what we said
Oh yeah.
about him when he came in and when he joined. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's just who he is. He looks like an NFL offensive tackle. It's
Mm-hmm.
on our if you go check out our Sights and Sounds video, some practice highlights from today. They did this like drive back drill where they just have guys kind of practicing
Yeah.
utilizing power and leverage and driving guys back. And his physical dominance at times is just it's tough. Like he's going up against Grant Seagren and Seagren can't really do anything but get
Mm-hmm.
pushed back, which it kind of speaks to the power he has. But that's the line. It's coming together. You see the young guys working, Houston Kehana Torres, Preston Tuamu, and some of those guys working. And so you like where the units as it's coming along. But I really spent a lot of time with this new look wide receiver room. I really wanted to get eyes on that room. I wanted to see, kind of how these pieces fit together, post Hardley Gilmore, the news that he's been kicked off the team, just getting a look at what that room could look like, who's stepping up, what like who's made strides, guys that have been here on campus. Um, First time really getting to like watch Dane Key for a while. That's the vet, that's the guy. It feels like watching Jamal Banks last year. That's just going to be reliable, clearly wide receiver
Yes.
one, clearly the guy that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
the reliable go-to target week in and week out. Isaiah Hunter, solid route runner. You like, kind of some of the top end speed and kind of the physicality he plays with and the size he's got to him. I noted it to you, thought he'd be see a little more explosiveness from him. That's just partly because they were kind of going 75% instead of 100% speed.
Mm-hmm.
But want to see kind of crisper routes from him. But talking to guys after practice and specifically Willis McGahee, Isaiah Hunter was a name that came up as someone that's been pretty unguardable in practice, someone that has been pretty consistent catching the ball as well. Ja'Cory Barney, doing Ja'Cory
Yep.
Barney things. Doesn't look out of place in that room. I know some people think he's like small, but doesn't look out of place standing next to Dane Keen, Isaiah Hunter, and those guys. And yeah, it's Quinn Clark. I think of the guys that have stuck around, I think the guys that have made the biggest strides this offseason, Quinn Clark physically is just putting on the muscle to match his frame and he's running routes at a pretty high level. Really like just kind of how natural he is as a pass catcher downfield, how fluid he is in and out of breaks. And they're just I think they're doing a really good job with him. I think the staff's excited about him. And then the other name, I posted it on X after the open practice. Buy some Jane Doss stock. Just a little bit, just because we'll see how big of a role he ends up playing in the fall. But I
Yep.
really like the look of him. I think he's changed. He's worked on his body. He looks like a, kind of a Big Ten wide receiver now. Kind of settling into a role, and just I like the look of him, and I feel like there's a role for him somewhere. Him and Mosey are very similar players in my mind. Guys
Yeah.
that have taken some carries out of the backfield, thicker than the traditional wide receiver. You could throw Jenner and Bonner in that mix too. Bonner's going to play for sure. I think Bonner's going to be in that top six
He'll have a role.
receiver rotation. I just
Mhm.
feel like that's the thing. But yeah, I could see Doss working his way up into that mix. I could see Quinn Clark working his way up into that mix. But yeah, it's a fun room. It's a really fun room. A lot of different body types, a lot of different looking guys. I mean, even a guy I haven't even gotten to yet, but like Cortez Mills, watching him out there, going through some routes and things, you can just see it. He's such a nuanced route runner and has such a good understanding of timing and space, and like they're going through and cutting down at the top of routes and breaking back, and he does maybe the best job of any of them, just because he's so far along as a route runner compared to even like veteran guys on the roster. One quick, I just note from me before we get off the observations piece, like we watched again. You mentioned detailed practice details. They were
Yeah.
practicing for a good while, like 10-15 minutes. They were practicing top of route drills, which
Mhm.
to me says a lot. Like one, it's just again, they weren't doing that last year. They weren't this far into it this time last year in spring. One that tells me that. Two, what stuck out to me, it was Andrew Verbois leading the drill and Dikeel Shorts helping, not the other way around. For most everything else, it was Dikeel Shorts leading. Before these specific refining drills, it's Andrew Verbois leading the way.
And let's not forget that makes a little bit of sense because of what Dane Key said during his last press conference session. He said that he credited Andrew Verbois as being one of the coaches to help him develop that he used while he was at Kentucky. Verbois followed Dikeel Shorts to Nebraska from Kentucky, so there's obviously a connection there. And Verbois is a coach that Dane Key has a lot of respect for. So when somebody like Dane Key is saying that about you, I think that's pretty good. One more note on my practice observations that I forgot to know about the linebacker room. So Ramir Stewart, who we knew as a safety slash rover the past 2 seasons, he's now entering his third year, but in Rob Dvorak's inside linebacker room. So that's something to watch there. I'm not saying he's going to be playing snaps in the fall or anything, but it is interesting that they moved the 5'11", 210-pound downhill thumping safety into the second level linebacker room. So I thought that was notable, and I kind of liked watching him run around. Again, not saying he's gonna be playing snaps over anybody else in the inside linebacker room, but when you think about the next step that this defense is going to be taking with with John but- John Butler as the DC. Sorry, this sun is everywhere, Tim, but he kind of fits that mold of not like a just similar to a similar player to somebody like Deshaun Singleton who can do different things. I feel like Ramir Stewart, if the plan kind of comes together, he's that kind of guy who can move, and he's a sure tackler, and so that kind of makes kind of gives you a blueprint of what could be if he ends up impressing this spring and in fall and sticking around at Nebraska. So just a little tidbit on Ramir Stewart, who hasn't played a lot, but I think the staff is trying to find out a spot that he really sticks at, and so they're trying him at inside linebacker.
Yeah, and we got that confirmation from Dvorak after the press conference. We talked to him a little bit. You can read up Steve's story on his comments and some of the takeaways from his time at the podium. I did think it was good insight getting to talk to Marcus Satterfield and Heinrich Haarberg after the press
Yep.
conference, just getting an idea from both of those guys about just how this transition has been. Both of them, were in the one was in the quarterback room, one was the offensive coordinator, end of the year, one at tight end, changing positions, the other demoted essentially to tight ends coach, but both embracing their new roles, reunited, close, and both of them seemingly happier than ever.
Yeah, and I thought it was a cool thing for Heinrich Haarberg when he was talking today. He said that he sort of relates in a way to Marcus Satterfield, who Satterfield, like you said, Tim, was demoted in a way. He's not calling plays anymore. He's just coaching tight ends. And then Heinrich Haarberg, I mean, Heinrich was battling people for years, even in high school, saying, hey, instead of quarterback, maybe you should play tight end or a different position like that. So those two kind of finding a common ground, and that's helped build their relationship. And considering the athleticism and the size that Heinrich Haarberg brings to that tight end room, I think that's a pretty cool relationship type builder with his new position coach in Marcus Satterfield, which was his old position coach, as quarterbacks coach Sat was in his first year here at Nebraska. So yeah, just a kind of a cool dynamic I thought with Marcus Satterfield and Henry Carberg.
Yeah, and I thought Satterfield's comments on just, hey, we talk to our players about going through hard times or getting through adversity and sticking it out. And it's like, what better example of that? He even self said it. What better example of that than just sticking, with this program and then trying to build something. And I think those comments were necessary and needed, and also good for him for stepping up to the podium, answering those questions head on, not ducking those questions really. Because it's been tough. I'm sure it's been tough on him and his family just dealing with this transition. It's never easy, having to
No,
deal with that, kind of swallow your pride and do that. But again, he's taking it all in stride. Talked about how excited he is about working with Dana Holgerson and learning from him and really honing in on the position coach. And by all accounts, talking to sources around the program and talking to recruits, it's going well. It's going really well. Like the Marcus Satterfield as position coach is going really well. He's done a really good job on the recruiting trail. They got three four-star tight ends scheduled to officially
yeah,
visit
I've noticed
this
the
summer.
recruiting with him. Mm-hmm.
And then 2027, they're in it for the number one tight end in the country, just because of partly because of Marcus Satterfield, the job he did while he was on campus. So Satterfield's doing a good job. I can't really, blame him for. I guess you not really can't blame him, but he's doing a good job. He's settling into his role, and yeah, he's got work on his hands with Heinrich Haarberg and Carter Nelson, who we mentioned is up to 238 pounds, still gaining some weight. I'm excited to see what Carter ends up looking like because I'm assuming we're not going to get a look at him until at least fall camp.
Yeah, it's got to be at least until fall camp as he's out for the spring with that hip surgery rehab that he's going through right now. But yeah, the 238 pounds nugget from Sat was awesome to hear. That just tells you that the program still has a plan of turning him into kind of that hybrid wideout, big body jumbo receiver slash H back tight end, whatever you want to call him. He's just a weapon out there, and it's going to take time for him, obviously, to continue that transition of blocking, something that he didn't do in high school, didn't need to do in high school. So that's going to be a process. But him as a weapon out there in the pass game is always something that's going to be top of the mind of the fan base for sure.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, like we'll hopefully see him in the fall. If not, we'll definitely see
Mm-hmm.
him in the spring. And I think the program, this team is still optimistic about the future he has ahead of him. But that'll probably do it for us here. Appreciate you guys tuning in to our rapid recap. Be sure to check out our sights and sounds, highlights from open practice today, as well as our press conference videos, and as well as recruiting blitz out every Monday with the latest recruiting intel and recruiting news across, kind of what's going on at Nebraska. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back with another episode after next week's open practice on Tuesday.